You were all over Much Music in those days.
Yeah.
It seemed like every time I turned on Much Music, you were on.
Yeah, and 80 from 1989 until about 1992, you know, I joke around now. I say that was my 5 minutes, but I was like sort of like the it girl on Much Music for a while because that the Body Rock album and the some like Body Rock was close to triple platinum. Um, some Girls Do was over platinum in Canada, and at that time, I don't know, I just seemed to hit with the right songs at the right time with the right visuals, and Much Music was all over. I was in heavy rotation, so the funny thing about that. When I met my husband, John, and we had to do a rehearsal for this jazz tour, like I said, and it was quite awkward because previous to him and I meeting we met in 2001, in the spring of 2001. And again, my friend Ralph Alfonso, who worked at Network Records, was orchestrating the entire thing. And he said, we're going to put together this A team and we all have to rehearse each other's material because the one band is going to play for all three artists, because that was the only way financially to make this jazz tour work from coast to coast, right?
Matt, could I interject? Who else was on the bill with you?
Dave Rave from Teenage
Okay.
Head. He does it like a jazzy thing as well. And then Ralph Alfonso had a whole beat poetry thing going on as well. I don't know if it was sort of like, Jack Kerouac meets Leonard Cohen kind of vibe. And he would get up and he did it was very Leonard Cohen-y. He did a talk poetry kind of thing over music, which was really, really quite great. And but he needed a headliner. So he asked me because he needed somebody who was going to draw people in to see the show. I don't mean that in a braggy kind of way, but that's why I was invited onto this tour.
Of course.
But financially, to make it work, they had to put together the A team. So I had called John Cody several times in the past to sub for my regular drummer, a guy named Matt Pease, when he was unavailable, because my horn player, Graham Howell, kept saying, you got to work with John Cody. He's amazing. You'd love his drumming style. He tunes his drums so well. He's great. He'd be great in your jazz band. So I had called and left messages on a few occasions for John and said, hi, John Cody, this is Lee Aaron calling. And, my drummer can't make this show. And I was hoping you might be available. I never even got a phone call back from this guy, right? And I was like,
playing hard to get.
Well, no, he's like, I just thought you were like this dumb rock chick, like little tart who pranced around, in, her little crop tops and, little leather jackets. And he just thought I was like some kind of like record company product that was being pushed to the forefront. So that was his experience with me. So he had no interest even in really meeting me or playing with me. And well, again, I'm not meaning to be boastful, but our first hour of our first rehearsal, the first day, he said he was blown away. He said, I had no idea how good of a singer you were, that you were really very, very musical and how much talent you had. And of course, obviously we're married and we have children now. So he did a complete 360 on me.
Well, it worked very well for you. That's amazing. Yeah. I was stunned. I remember now something comes to my mind's eye. Back when you first started your jazz thing, did you play a place on Hastings Street called the Atrium? Do you remember?
Probably.
It was in a little hotel right near the P&E.
Oh, a little hotel?
Well, it was like, medium-sized hotel. I think it might be a Best Western now or something.
Probably. I did. You know what? I was working with an agency out of Vancouver, and I realized early on that if I was going to play places like the Jazz Cellar, that I was going to be playing for $50 in a meal.
Yeah.
And, so I was at that point, it had evolved to the point where I had a bass player, keyboard player, and a horn player. I was a 4-piece. And I realized that the only way to actually make money doing this was to play the high-end hotel circuit. So I was doing, the revolving restaurant at the top of the thing. And, I did that. I was in the, the Olympic Hotel right there at the Pan Pacific. I started doing these high-end rooms because they paid well. And I had a 4-piece act and I wanted to be able to pay them decently. However, what I didn't quite realize was that in the jazz world, that was like selling out to do those venues. They were like, that's not what you do, right? And I'm like, how does anybody make a living doing this, right? So the strange thing was, in every other province, in every other jazz festival, when I did the jazz and I released my album Slick Chick, I actually had a great promotional team out of New York. It was a former promo lady that I worked with Bebop Promotions. She had me doing CBC stuff. She had me do all over Canada. So I was doing the Jazz Festival, the Harbourfront Festival in Toronto. I was doing the Jazz Festival in Ottawa. But in Vancouver, where I had played these high-end hotels, the Jazz Festival didn't want to touch me because it wasn't respected. So that was kind of a blow. But the weird thing is I ended up in the Jazz Festival Guide anyway, because the hotels that I worked with that were involved in the Jazz Festival thing would hire me anyway. So it was this weird catch-22 where I wasn't officially in the Jazz Festival with the Vancouver Jazz Festival, but they had to advertise me in the Jazz Festival Guide because I was hired by the hotels anyway. Right. It was weird. It was weird. And, you know, and I was working with some really great players. Tilden Webb, I don't know if you're familiar with, great guy named Brent Gubbles, Danny Parker on bass. I'm just trying to think of some of the other people that I worked with, you know, some really, really fabulous players.
Well, it's interesting. I remember when I first started working with Randy, he'd always wanted to do a jazz album. He always sort of dabbled in jazz anyway. Even songs like Undone is jazzy, and you know, Looking Out for Number One and all this sort of thing. So because Lenny Breau was his guitar teacher as a young boy in Winnipeg, he always had this thing about wanting to do a jazz album, sort of in tribute to Lenny Breau's legacy. And so, and that was the thing. We toured all over the place in every little nook and cranny, small little places, you know, and it's weird because Randy was paying me my regular wage, and you know, we weren't flying to gigs. Let's put it that way. We were driving a lot. There was scaled down things for that, but you know, a lot of it came out of his pocket just because he wanted to do it. You know, it was an important thing for him to do it. It was interesting, but once again, he was panned totally. He was panned as not being real jazz. You know. Well,
I wasn't panned. That was I mean, that was.
Well, you weren't panned, but you were frowned upon in Vancouver. I guess, sorry, I used the wrong terminology. You were frowned upon because where you played, but Randy actually had a lot of bad press because they didn't, from the jazz aficionados. I remember our first gig in Toronto.
It's a very weird world, I have to say that. So yeah, again, because I started, the inception of the jazz thing was local, and I was playing, you know, Babalu and places.
Right.
I'm just trying to think, that's where Michael Bublé started, right?
Right,
you know,
yeah.
Babalu. And in fact, one night I walked in there, Michael's like, Lee, you got to get on stage and sing with me. And you know, the sad thing is he had all these great jazz players, and he even came to me backstage. He says, you know, the guys in my, maybe I shouldn't be saying this. He said, confided to me. He said, I'm a fan. I would love for you to get up and sing with me. I'm going to tell you something right now. The guys in my band think I'm cheesy, but I'm a hard worker. And my heart was broken when he said, I thought, oh my God. So I'm like, of course I'll get up and sing with you. And look at him now, right? Yeah, but the jazz guys didn't really respect him. You know, again, and look at him now. It is a bit of a weird world, but I have to say, when I played the Top of the Senator in Toronto, which is that's
the one that we played in Toronto. That was our first gig. Yeah.
The Globe and Mail loved me. Like, I got very good reviews, but I, you know, and I don't mean to, again, like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but this music for me it wasn't like I just went, hey, jazz is, the whole swing thing is kitschy in the mid 90s. I'm just going to jump on this bandwagon. These were my roots. I grew up singing this stuff. So it was very authentic for me. And I think that it was probably kind of hard to pan me. Because it was genuinely part of my soul, right? And it still is. I mean, you know, if you listen to the Diamond Baby Blues album, which was my 2018 release, you know, I covered an old Coco Taylor tune called I'm a Woman, which was the Bo Diddley tune, I'm a Man, reimagined for her. And then again, reimagined for me. It's pretty much pure blues, right? And, but we do it a la Zeppelin-esque style, right? But that's part of my whole quintessential sound, I think, is that the roots of music like that, for sure.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Check out our other vignettes and full episodes from a wide variety of guests for more great content. Please like, share, and subscribe, and become a member at SocialNRGPresents.com to access premium content and earn valuable energy points just for watching.